Madison entered the lives of the Hamilton family like a quiet breeze, yet carried a latent force powerful enough to sweep away the secrets they had tried so hard to conceal for years. Upon her first encounter with the family, everyone regarded her simply as a doctor at Garland Memorial Hospital, assigned to treat Bill after his mild stroke. However, her arrival was anything but a random event in this family's life. At the very moment when Bill was at his weakest and Chelsea was facing her own troubles, Madison gradually infiltrated every corner of their existence, becoming an indispensable figure in the Hamilton family's story. With her calm exterior, Madison quickly gained the trust of Chelsea, the youngest daughter of the Hamiltons. She also began to draw closer to Naomi, the sharp and ever-vigilant older sister. Naomi always felt uneasy whenever Madison entered the room, her eyes constantly glittering with suspicion, an unease that Madison found difficult to dispel. Having witnessed countless betrayals from her father, Naomi found it hard to trust anyone, especially a woman with such an ambiguous past as Madison. Naomi's anxiety only grew as she realized Madison kept an odd distance, never disclosing anything about her own family or history. There was also the fact that Madison admitted to refusing a date with Chelsea, suspecting that Chelsea had not yet come out to her family. These evasive and overly perfect explanations only gave Naomi more reason to believe that something was not right. The relationship between Madison and the Hamiltons began to darken when a dangerous theory took root in the minds of observers, that Madison was not merely an ordinary doctor, but could in fact be Bill's illegitimate child. This theory was entirely plausible, given Bill's past as a powerful criminal attorney who often used murky relationships to achieve his goals. If Madison truly was the result of a secret affair during Bill's marriage to Danny, then her presence in Chelsea's life was no coincidence. The relationship was laced with calculation, fraught with both emotional and psychological upheaval, and Madison might be approaching a revelation that would shock the entire Hamilton family. Not long afterward, Madison's suspicious aura became even more pronounced. She wore no wedding ring, and no one at the hospital had heard of her before she appeared on June 9th. Despite her impressive credentials, she had no clear background, no traceable history. Every detail about Madison grew murkier, making her more enigmatic than ever. The theory that Madison was Bill's daughter gradually gained traction among those following the story, and if it proved true, her relationship with Chelsea would become a heartbreaking tragedy. The two would discover that they were half-sisters, a truth neither could have imagined, especially since Chelsea had genuinely fallen in love with Madison. These tangled emotions could propel both the Hamilton and Dupree families into unprecedented conflict, plunging everything into chaos. But the mystery did not end there. Another theory began to spread among the community. Perhaps Madison was not Bill's daughter at all, but rather someone deliberately planted by a mysterious force within the Dupree family to observe and even sabotage the Hamiltons from within. If this were true, Madison's presence would be a cold, calculated infiltration. She had won Chelsea and Naomi's trust, and her actions directly influenced Bill's recovery, the patriarch of the Hamiltons. Madison could be a mole, or simply a woman carrying a generations-old vendetta against the Hamilton family, quietly plotting her revenge. Sensing the strangeness in Madison's demeanor and actions, Naomi began to investigate. She rifled through medical records and searched for information about Madison's past residences, but everything was too perfect, too clean. Something Naomi, as a lawyer, knew was never trustworthy. Every step Naomi took only deepened her suspicions. Madison had left no traces behind, as if her existence had only begun the moment she set foot in Garland Memorial. Meanwhile, Chelsea, who had always lived in the shadow of her family's reputation and the public eye since childhood, saw in Madison a sense of peace and understanding she'd long yearned for. Past wounds made Chelsea open her heart easily to Madison, sharing her pain and longing for love. But this very vulnerability made Chelsea a perfect target for schemes, if Madison was not who she seemed to be. One night, Chelsea accidentally caught Madison entering Bill's room in the middle of the night without any medical reason. Chelsea immediately sensed something was wrong. Madison stood there, silently watching Bill, her gaze a turbulent mix of hatred and pity. the look of a daughter torn between two choices, to kill her enemy or forgive her father. As the truth began to unravel, a fateful night arrived. Madison was preparing to leave Garland Memorial for reasons unknown. Naomi, having collected enough information, confronted Madison in the parking lot, holding medical records that proved Bill once had an illegitimate child with a nurse named Lena. That child was never officially registered, but Madison's birth date, place, and medical ID all matched. Would Madison confess everything and face the truth? Or would she continue her charade, drowning herself in the roles of loving partner and devoted doctor, even as she slowly destroyed the Hamilton family from within? The answer remained uncertain, but it was clear that in Beyond the Gates, the truth was always a double-edged sword, and the one holding the hilt was the only survivor after the storm of secrets could no longer be hidden. When Madison first approached Chelsea, she genuinely believed she was carrying out a carefully calculated plan for revenge. Her aim was to seduce Chelsea, Bill's daughter, to retaliate against the man who had so cruelly abandoned her mother. Everything seemed meticulously orchestrated by Madison. She wanted Bill to witness the agony of his two daughters falling in love, completely unaware of their blood relation. This would be a devastating blow to Bill's pride, forcing him to confront the sins of his past and pay for his old misdeeds. Madison thought that by doing so, she would finally achieve the revenge she had always desired. What she didn't expect, however, was that she would slowly fall genuinely in love with Chelsea during the process. When Chelsea joyfully announced she was pregnant, Madison could not feign happiness or utter congratulations. Her feelings were a tangled mess, caught between Chelsea's innocent happiness and the heavy secrets weighing down her own heart. She could not bear the thought of having to tell Chelsea the painful truth, that they were half-sisters. If Madison confessed, she knew not only would Chelsea be devastated, but the entire Hamilton family would be thrown into catastrophic upheaval. The price of truth would be the total collapse of not just the sisters' relationship, but the very family they had all tried so hard to protect. Day by day, Madison realized she could no longer hide the truth. She had fallen truly in love with Chelsea, and her feelings had nothing to do with her original plan for revenge. Madison wondered if she could go on living this lie, or if she would have to confront Chelsea, admit their blood bond, and risk losing everything. Yet she couldn't ignore the cost of revealing the truth. Part of her refused to accept that everything she had built, their love and her vendetta, would come crashing down because of a single confession. With each passing day, Madison's guilt and inner turmoil grew ever more intense. She stood at a crossroads, to reveal the truth and shatter everything she had painstakingly built with Chelsea, or to continue living in a tangled mess of love, hatred, and unspoken secrets. One day, as Chelsea and Madison sat together, the room grew heavy and stifling. Chelsea looked into Madison's eyes, not just with love, but with hope and trust. Yet at that very moment, Madison's gaze betrayed her fear. She knew she could no longer deceive Chelsea, and what had transpired between them was no longer a game. This was real love, deep and complicated, far beyond any original scheme. At last, Madison decided to face the truth. As Chelsea overflowed with the joy of impending motherhood, Madison realized the time had come to lay everything bare, no matter how high the cost. She took Chelsea's hand, looked deeply into her innocent and hopeful eyes, and began to tell her story. She spoke of the guilty relationship between Bill and her mother, how she had been born unacknowledged, and now, the real reason she had entered their lives. Madison's confession seemed to freeze the air in the room. Chelsea was dumbfounded, unable to believe what she had just heard. She could not comprehend, could not accept, that the woman she loved was her half-sister. This revelation not only shattered their love but plunged the entire Hamilton family into an irreparable crisis. Now, the question was no longer whether Madison and Chelsea would continue their relationship, but whether they could rebuild anything from the wreckage of betrayal and secrets. The truth was out, and its price was a life that could never go back to the way it was. Could the Hamiltons face the consequences of letting the past haunt their present? Or would they somehow weather the storm and reconstruct their shattered bonds?